to Jose or to me on behalf of for information. So now we're going to our keynote speaker, John Chisholm. John is an entrepreneur, CEO, and investor with more than 10 years of experience. He's the head of the Chisholm Venture, a San Francisco-based startup advisory and angel investment firm. He's the author of Unleash Your Power, a popular book to discovering, launching, and scaling your ideal business. This is a really good book if you're planning to launch your own business. I recommend you read this book. He founded and served as the CEO and chairman of the Science Technology. This is now a company part of Google. And he's a pioneer in online surveys and customer stats. He provided a world-class feedback manager. He started his career in engineering and management position at GE, and he will back follow up consulting to companies such as MBA, Microsoft, Sales, and PayPal. John, welcome to Liberty International World Conference. Thank you for being here. Let me conclude.
Thank you. Okay, I'm fine. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. What a thrill and an honor to be with you at this Liberty International event. And meeting all of you has been great. So grateful to all of our sponsors, Liberty International, Frederick Naumann, Libertank. I was privileged to be part the last few days of the Libertank sponsored and organized Liberty Camp in Guadalupe. What a fabulous event that was. If you were involved with it, either as an instructor or an attendee, please raise your hand. Good job. Congratulations. Let's give those folks a round of applause. Yes. My topic is the America's human trash heaps, dumping the downsides of public policy onto society's invisible exploited. When we think of trash heaps, we usually think of people like this young man struggling to make a living on a trash heap. And I don't mean to minimize his plight at all. But the fact is that each and every one of us, families, professionals, the elderly, are parts of a different kind of trash heap that I'd like to talk to you about tonight. And that is, oh, thank you. Let's see if this works. That is segments of society that lack political power and advocacy, are invisible. Do I just, okay, so I'll hold this. Okay. Are easily demonized, for example, landlords, millionaires, all of these who bear the costs of public policy. And to give you a flavor for what I mean by these trash heaps, let's consider, first of all, various public policies, 6 different ones, who the public policies are supposed to or said to help, what is the virtue signaled by them, who they actually help, and then who are the trash heaps, those who are harmed by those policies. So we'll consider these 6 public policies. First, zoning. Well, of course, zoning nominally helps the steel industry, and indeed it does. But who's harmed by steel tariffs? Well, there are a few tens of thousands of steel workers in the U.S., but there are 330 million people in the U.S., that is virtually the entire population, who buy things made of steel, who pay more for that steel by virtue of steel tariffs. Zoning. Zoning is supposed to improve urban and suburban communities and reduce overcrowding and improve quality of life. Who does it really help? Existing homeowners and property owners. Who does it hurt? People who are trying to move into those regions. They have to pay more. San Francisco, where I live, is a beautiful example. It's completely unaffordable. Any startup that needs to hire a lot of people is in a bad place, and lower income people who can't afford to live there. Next, minimum wages, supposed to help less skilled workers, of course, but who does it actually help? Well, automation and robotics suppliers, because we've seen, for example, in McDonald's and other fast food restaurants, they're putting in place this new equipment to eliminate people. So lower skilled people are becoming unemployable, and also businesses harmed because they have to invest in software and automation when they could be hiring lower cost people if they could be allowed to do so. Occupational licensing supposedly helps consumers, but who does it actually help? The incumbents in those various fields, whatever they are. New entrants find it harder to get in. That reduces choice and increases costs to consumers, so consumers don't actually benefit. Keeping interest rates artificially low are supposed to improve the economy. Who does it help? Stock investors and speculators. We see that right now because interest in your savings account is nothing. People are shifting all their money to the stock market. That helps investors and speculators. Who does it hurt? Anyone on a fixed income, anyone who can't afford to take the risk of investing in the stock market, like low-income people. And finally, diversity, inclusion, and equity, or DEI, in higher education. I'm going to say more about this in just a moment. It's supposed to help racial minorities and women. It does, but who's harmed by that? Well, the other half of the U.S., as I call it, rural, lower-income, red state students, and it actually harms racial minorities and others who are underqualified for universities through mismatch. I'll say more about that. So those are some examples. Here are three more. For any new law or regulation asked, we should be doing this all the time. Whenever there's a new law or regulation, let's ask, who is the trash heap for it? Here's one example, eviction moratoriums. That means a moratorium on evicting tenants who don't pay their rent. Who would be the trash heap for eviction moratoriums? Anybody? What? Landlords, yes, indeed. And indeed, we're seeing this nationwide. Of course, they're invisible because relative to the number of tenants, but as a result, many landlords have gone into forbearance on their properties. And this kind of law discourages new building, which raises rents ultimately, and ultimately hurts the tenants, doesn't it? So it's a very short-term perspective. The next one, federal debt. Who would be the trash heap for federal debt? Anybody? Young people, yes. Anybody else? The poor, lower income people in particular, yes. As Ron Paul says, I quote him here, the most sinister of all taxes is the inflation tax, which is a result of that federal spending. It hits the poor and the middle class most. And of course, unborn children or the next generation of taxpayers, as we heard earlier today. And finally, the so-called Affordable Care Act. Who would be the trash heap for Affordable Care Act? Anyone? What? I'm sorry? Middle class people. Yes, absolutely. Poor people. Thank you.
Workers who have to fill out all this extra paperwork.
Well, there are lots of them. Actually, an interesting survey showed that women in particular feel that they're worse off now than they were previously. So healthy Americans, of course, ultimately everybody, because whenever things move towards government control and monopoly, government-imposed monopoly, that reduces innovation and reduction in costs, and all of that ultimately hurts all of us. Okay. Trash heaps may range from 0 to 100% of the overall population. These are different trash heaps. There are many small trash heaps and a few larger trash heaps. The many small ones, because they're small, it limits the strength of the opposition. And on the large ones, costs are spread over a large number of people, which reduces public resistance. So we saw, here are some examples. So for example, the steel workers, where 330 million people each pay a little bit more, they're so dispersed, there's little public resistance there. And on the other hand, landlords are a relatively small part of the electorate, so they're not as powerful. So this group over here are identifiable but have limited strength or force. The other segment is large, but they tend to be invisible and hard to pin down. So I see that there are broadly two categories, of trash heaps: the designated trash heap, like landlords or homeowners, and the everyone else trash heap, everyone other than steelworkers or politicians or racial minorities. So what trash heaps have you been relegated to? Anyone can suggest or tell us one trash heap that they're part of? Not by choice, of course. Anyone? What's that? Okay, the Affordable Care Act. That's, of course, affects so many of us. Anybody else? Gosh, I can think of lots of, if you're a homeowner, if you're an automobile owner, if you travel on international flights or domestic flights, if you use the airport, if you stay in a hotel in a major city, you're paying all kinds of taxes. People who stay in hotels, us right here, we're not voting in the city that we're staying in the hotel of. So we're a perfect trash heap for that city, aren't we? Because they can just pile on the taxes. And of course, when you get your hotel bill, doesn't it have a whole bunch of taxes there that are otherwise ignored? Okay, so we've all been relegated to many trash heaps. Now, it wouldn't do any good at all just to complain. And all of us here are action-oriented. We are not just complainers here. I know from meeting and talking to all of you. So we're interested in fighting trash heaps, aren't we? So what are the ways to fight trash heaps? Well, here are two broad strategies and approaches: tactical and strategic, is how I characterize them. Activism and education. So activism, we can call out and protest as unfair the penalties to the trash heaps, the benefits to the special interests and politicians, and we can hark to the freedom to grow and flourish. On the and all of this appeals more to the heart, in my experience. On the education side, you and I know all of the different techniques that and aspects of economics that we need to educate people in: limited government, public choice economics, the unintended consequences of regulations, and so forth. And this is more appealing to the mind. They both appeal to both, but there is an emphasis there. Let me share with you a few of the ways that I've been active on both the tactical and strategic sides. Just to give you some examples in a very small way. I know all of you have been active as well, and this might just suggest new ways to for you to be active on either the active side or the strategic side, and also maybe some of the resources that I'm using could be useful to you as well. So first of all, San Francisco crime and vagrancy. I live in San Francisco. Has anyone not heard about the problems that the city of San Francisco, California is having with crime and vagrancy? A lot of it stems from the ideology of the city council and the district attorney, who more and more feel like it's okay to people steal if they need whatever it is they're stealing. And so those so-called lifestyle crimes go unpunished. These are some of the headlines that you've seen in the paper and online lately. Who would be the trash heap in this case? Anyone? Who's the trash heap? The people, the taxpayers of San Francisco, aren't they? Yes. Yes, sir.
Walgreens shut down all their stores in that town.
Walgreens is a trash heap. Many small businesses are. Yes, sir.
People who like to shop those small businesses.
That's right. Absolutely. If you're a lower income person who doesn't have the freedom to drive some distance to shop, if your corner grocery store closes down, as many have, you're really out of luck. So these are a few of the things. This is I've been very active in recalling our highly ideological district attorney. This is an example of something that I've written that I've posted in a number of places. And notice here, again, we talk about activism appealing to the heart. I've emphasized how much this is hurting lower income and middle income people who live in San Francisco. Now, so often we think that the victims of crime are higher income people. Not so. They can afford the pricey security systems and gates and gated communities and so forth, not the lower income and middle income people. Vagrancy is also a problem. Here, part of this, the answer, I think, is our choice of words. Politicians always use the word homeless, the homeless. That makes us feel sorry for those people, even though they're shoplifters and vagrants and vandals. So I use the word vagrants, which to capture those. And not all the homeless certainly are vagrants, but many of them are, and those are the ones I have problems with. Our mayor refers to the homeless and the vagrants as clients. And as I say here, usually clients are the ones paying for your services. By that definition, your clients have been forgotten. They're the San Francisco taxpayers. So, you know, maybe there are some things in your city where you can do similarly. I've had the privilege to serve on the MIT Board of Trustees for the last 6 years. MIT recently came out with this 5-year strategic action plan for diversity, equity, and inclusion. It's known by the initials DEI nowadays. It's a thoughtful plan, but I was troubled by the fact that it just focuses on 2 dimensions of diversity, pretty much, not entirely, but pretty much race and gender. Well, race and gender are physical and identity aspects of diversity, but these are only 2 aspects of millions of dimensions that make each and every one of us a unique individual. In addition to physical and identity are cognitive and intellectual aspects, as well as a myriad of related attributes. I call this holistic diversity, encompassing the entire individual, not just race and gender. Now, by focusing on race and gender, who are the trash heaps? Well, if you sort the US states by the degree to which they send students to MIT, you'll see that the other half of the US is the most underrepresented, much more underrepresented at MIT than our racial minorities. They're rural, lower income, and center right. Now these people we make no outreach to them at all. There is no on-campus constituency or advocacy for them. We have a huge machinery to promote MIT to racial minorities and women. We have none at all for the other half of the United States, and I say the other half because they are about half of the US population. To make matters worse, they are stereotyped in many ways, which leads them not to enroll at MIT even if they're accepted. If you sort the 50 US states from red to blue, you can see how profoundly things are skewed the way they currently are towards blue states. So as a result of that, I wrote this report and developed this presentation. These are some of the slides from it. I talk about why it is that physical identity diversity hijacks our attention. It's because it's fast thinking as opposed to slow thinking. Fast thinking is easy, slow thinking is deliberate and takes energy. These are some of the ways people are discriminated against, and there's this negative feedback loop between underrepresentation and stereotyping. So I captured all of that. And then the report is full of recommendations as shown here. If you have your cameras, your phones, take them out right now because these are the URLs where you can download the report and the presentation if you wish, if you'd like to get the full story, okay? Okay, in addition to that, on the education side, I've done my best to write about, based on my personal experience as an entrepreneur, of what types of regulations promote versus stifle entrepreneurship, innovation, and economic growth. This is part of the paper. It appeared in the International Journal of Entrepreneurship Small Business. You can download the paper at this URL right here. So again, if you want to take a picture of that, feel free. And finally, on the side of education, I've written this book. I call it Unleash Your Inner Company. I call it a classical liberal guide to entrepreneurship, in addition to laying out a 10-step process to discover, launch, and scale the ideal business for you, starting with unsatisfied customer needs in areas you're passionate about. It also addresses such topics as how to deal with regulations, how entrepreneurship is ethical by making the world more positive, sum, and abundant, and this appendix, which has advice for policymakers to make the modern regulatory state more resilient, humane, friendly startups and innovation. So those are some resources that hopefully will be useful to you. Again, it has been a thrill to be here with you. Thank you so much for happening. Let's get rid of, those trash heaps. Thanks again. Oh, one more thing. Does anyone here teach entrepreneurship? Raise your hand if you teach entrepreneurship. Okay, great. Well, if you do, my book is used as a text in a number of universities around the US and the world. I have a couple of copies here with me at the conference. I'd be happy to give you a copy to take back with you to assess whether you think it would be a good fit for your class. Okay, so thank you. Here they are right here. This is the book.